This is the Golden Gate. It's the East Gate. It's known as the Mercy Gate to Jerusalem. As you can tell, it's been sealed.
Doesn't it look like that would have been a gate at one time?
But it's not a city. It's more like a gate.
For nearly 5 centuries, the Eastern Gate of Jerusalem has remained sealed, silent, immovable, defiant. Kings have fallen, empires have shifted, nations have risen and collapsed. Yet the stones of this ancient threshold have refused to move. But now, something has changed. Pilgrims whisper of tremors beneath the ground. Guards report dust drifting from sealed cracks. Cameras aimed at the gate flicker and fail. And in the dead of night, witnesses claim a faint glow pulses from within the sealed chambers, like a heartbeat awakening after ages of sleep. What force is stirring behind the stones? Why now? And what prophecy is beginning to breathe again? Before we uncover what's happening behind the sealed stones, don't forget to like, leave your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to the channel. For almost 5 centuries, the Eastern Gate has stood as one of Jerusalem's greatest paradoxes. Sealed by decree, guarded by graves, and left untouched even as every other entrance to the old city has undergone repairs or reconstruction. When Sultan Suleiman ordered it closed in 1541, he reinforced the decision with a cemetery barrier and heavy stonework, ensuring no priest or messianic figure could approach without crossing ritual impurity. His action, intended to halt prophecy, instead wove the gate even deeper into biblical narrative. Since then, its silence has been its message. Yet silence is no longer the defining feature. Modern documentation reveals a pattern of anomalies, subtle at first glance, but collectively forming one of the most compelling sequences of structural irregularities ever recorded on the ancient wall. Recent scans show hairline fractures forming along the upper arch, fine enough to escape casual observation, but clear under magnification. Unlike typical erosion, these fractures follow an outward spreading pattern, suggesting pressure from behind the sealed stones rather than weathering on the surface. Stoneworkers familiar with the region report that normal temperature cycles cannot explain these linear microsplits. Equally intriguing are the low-frequency vibrations recorded at night. Multiple visitors using mobile sensors have captured faint pulses, slow, rhythmic, and confined almost exclusively to the gate's perimeter. The vibrations do not match nearby traffic patterns or construction activity. Instead, they rise and fade unpredictably, as though originating from deep within the structure. Historical discoveries continue to re-emerge with new relevance. The 1969 incident, when archaeologist James Fleming fell into a hidden cavity, revealed an older buried gate beneath the sealed one. Its arch and stones indicate architectural techniques predating Ottoman craftsmanship, implying the current gate may only be the topmost layer of a multi-era design. This revelation aligns with ancient Jewish, Christian, and Islamic traditions that treat the eastern entrance as a threshold of eschatological importance. Now, new surveys using ground-penetrating radar hint at additional hidden voids behind the sealed facade. Voids not recorded in Ottoman, British, or Israeli documentation. Their shapes resemble narrow passageways, as though the gate once held interior corridors intended for ceremonial movement. Paired with sudden temperature plate anomalies and magnetic irregularities, the structure behaves less like a static monument and more like a system adjusting unseen. And if these patterns continue, fractures widening, pulses intensifying, chambers revealing, what has rested in stillness for centuries may soon enter a new phase. Keep watching. The next discovery may redefine everything we think we know about this sealed threshold. The most compelling layer of the Eastern Gate mystery does not come from instruments or distant academic studies. but from the testimonies of those who have stood before the sealed stones and witnessed changes with their own eyes. These accounts, diverse in background yet remarkably consistent in description, form a mosaic of observations, suggesting the gate is no longer as dormant as history once believed. Pilgrims visiting the gate at sunrise frequently describe fine dust drifting from the upper stones, falling in soft pulses as the light touches the wall. To some, it seems like ordinary erosion. To others, it resembles the imagery of Ezekiel, where the prophet watches the glory of the Lord approach from the east, causing the environment itself to react as he draws near. Guards stationed nearby have quietly spoken of muted, rhythmic sounds from behind the sealed doorway, faint, hollow tones, unlike normal shifting stone. These soft echoes call to mind the biblical motif of thresholds preparing for divine movement. In Psalm 24, gates and ancient doors are poetically commanded to lift up their heads in anticipation of the King of Glory. While the eastern gate has not opened, the idea that it might be responding internally aligns with this prophetic picture. Visitors praying near the cemetery have sensed a gentle vibration beneath their feet, a wave of motion so soft it could easily be dismissed, yet notable enough to leave an impression. Scripture repeatedly describes the earth trembling before significant divine moments. When Jesus entered Jerusalem, Matthew records that the whole city was stirred. When he rose from the dead, the ground shook at the angel's touch. These biblical tremors were never violent at first. They began subtly, just as eyewitnesses describe now. Others have reported brief glimmers of light slipping through hairline gaps in the stone, small flashes, almost like reflections, yet appearing on nights with no movement, no candles, no nearby activity. Such flickers evoke the imagery in Ezekiel 43, when the presence of God returns to the temple from the east, described as radiance filling the approach. Individually, these signs are small: dust, faint tones, a trembling surface, a flicker of light. But in Scripture, God often begins with such gentle markers, patterns that only the watchful recognize. When viewed through a biblical lens, these eyewitness accounts do not simply describe a shifting structure. They paint the portrait of a gate behaving in a way consistent with prophetic expectation. The sealed stones remain closed, but the atmosphere around them is changing, just as the prophets once foretold. The Bible is not vague about the eastern side of Jerusalem. It repeatedly identifies this direction as the pathway of divine movement. And now, the physical world appears to be echoing those ancient declarations with increasing clarity. Ezekiel 44:2 records God's own command. "This gate shall remain shut, because the Lord, the God of Israel, has entered through it." The sealing of the gate, once considered merely an act of Ottoman policy, now looks remarkably aligned with this verse. Its unbroken closure across centuries becomes more than architectural history. It becomes obedience to prophecy. But prophecy does not end with a sealed doorway. Ezekiel 43 describes the return of God's glory from the east, approaching Jerusalem with a sound like the roar of rushing waters. While modern observers have not reported anything that dramatic, they do describe something curious: a rise in shofar-like tones reported near the Kidron Valley at sunrise in 2024. These tones, deep and resonant, have no confirmed source. To some, they are atmospheric quirks. To others, they feel like distant rehearsals of ancient announcements. In recent years, Jerusalem residents have also reported prophetic dreams, often involving radiant light over the eastern wall or a sense of gathering significance. Such collective spiritual impressions are reminiscent of patterns seen throughout biblical history, when God stirred hearts before he moved visibly. Taken together, These elements, ancient writings, modern tremors, unexplained sounds, share visions, suggest that old prophecies may be aligning with present realities in a way rarely seen across centuries. If you want more investigations into these unfolding signs, don't forget to like, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe so you won't miss the next revelations. Beneath the sealed stones of the Eastern Gate lies a geological landscape that is far more complex than the casual observer might imagine. For decades, scientists assumed the gate simply rested upon the same bedrock as the surrounding wall, an ordinary continuation of Jerusalem's limestone foundation. But recent studies reveal that this section of the city is structurally unique, exhibiting patterns and anomalies not found elsewhere along the old city's perimeter. The first unusual characteristic is the shared limestone ridge that runs from the Mount of Olives, crosses the Kidron Valley, and continues into the base of the Eastern Gate. This unbroken geological pathway forms a natural bridge between the mountain, central to biblical prophecy, and the sealed entrance itself. While geological continuity is not inherently strange, the precision of the alignment is. The gate sits directly in front of the point where the ridge rises and forms a natural conduit for resonance, as if the landscape is designed to channel force, sound, or vibration between the two sites. In 2023 and 2024, nearby seismic stations recorded an increase in microtremor spikes, many of which displayed unusual signatures. Unlike typical tectonic pulses, which follow predictable waveforms, these tremors showed irregular frequency modulation concentrated almost exclusively near the gate's base. Geologists analyzing the data noted that no parallel signals appeared in areas only a short distance away, suggesting a highly localized phenomenon. Further adding to the mystery is the discovery of slight soil liquefaction near the lower edge of the cemetery that lies directly in front of the gate. Soil liquefaction usually results from powerful earthquakes, yet no such events occurred during the observed period. The effect was mild, barely perceptible, but undeniable. Researchers proposed that slow, repeated internal pressure from below could be responsible, the type produced when subterranean layers subtly shift over time. Some experts suggest that subterranean compression may be occurring beneath the structure. This theory is supported by the presence of quartz-bearing limestone pockets within the ridge. When pressurized or strained, quartz can generate small electrical charges or produce faint luminescent effects. Such reactions might explain rare reports of soft glimmers seen through the gate's minute stone gaps at night. The most confounding element remains the geological isolation of the activity. While Jerusalem sits atop a complex network of ancient fault lines, none of the surrounding gates or walls display similar tremor patterns. Scientists openly admit they cannot explain why the vibrations appear to cluster beneath the Eastern Gate alone. For those familiar with prophecy, the geological unrest recalls the imagery of Zechariah, who speaks of the Mount of Olives splitting when the Lord returns. Whether symbolic or literal, the present tremors, silent, steady, and strangely focused, have made the ground beneath the sealed gate a subject of unprecedented scrutiny. For centuries, leaders and empires avoided touching the gate, not only out of reverence, but out of fear. To interfere with it was to interfere with expectations held by millions across 3 major religions. And now, with reports of subtle shifting, new cracks, and unexplained thermal signatures, the unease surrounding the gate has returned stronger than ever. Israeli authorities maintain a deliberate silence. Officially, no structural changes have been acknowledged. Unofficially, guards and preservation workers report being instructed to avoid making public comments. This strategic silence has fueled speculation across religious communities. Some believe the authorities refuse to comment for fear of igniting unrest. Others suspect a quiet investigation is already underway behind closed doors. International attention has also increased. After abnormal drone footage circulated online showing unusual heat clusters near the gate, UN observers were reportedly asked to monitor the area discreetly.